Hello, Bond fans, and welcome once again. Continuing our look at James Bond's comic book adventures today with issues 4 and 5 of VARGR, where the proverbial really does hit the fan for our beloved secret agent. After the incredibly dark ending of the last issue, which saw Bond's colleagues brutally and coldly murdered by Mr. Masters, issue 4 picks up with said psychopath meeting Bond in the street. As if to throw Bond off the scent, Masters adopts quite the jaunty pose when greeting 007. I love it so much I might actually start greeting people like that myself. Oh, hi Calvin. Oh, hi! Anyway, Masters poses as a worker of Berlin Station and informs Bond that they need to head to an extraction point after some terrorists hit the station. I kind of love and am also a bit disappointed by how, even after being told that there are no survivors at the station, Bond is like, doesn't bat an eye and is just straight on with the mission. Masters suggests that the extraction point is the Slavem kjack building that Bond was in earlier, which seems odd. So Bond naturally calls M and Tanner to inform them of the situation. When Bond and Masters eventually arrive at Kjack's place, it looks like Zenyaronatop paid a visit, as all the civilian workers are in fact dead. Bond's suspicions are heightened here, and a really well-drawn fight breaks out, which ends with Bond killing Masters, injecting him with oxytocin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but not before the psycho's dying words of VARGR leave Bond a bit perplexed. At this point, I'm genuinely intrigued to find out what VARGR is as well. I just really hope that it's actually like a decent explanation and not just some arbitrary name because it sounds a little bit cool for a title. Anyway, Bond tries to leave, but who shows up? Well, Slavem Kjack, of course. It's here where we get a big chunk of exposition from Kjack as he exposits a good deal of his dastardly plan to Bond, said plan being to smuggle a disease disguised as, well, recreational drugs into Britain and eventually turn the entire island into one massive concentration camp. Huh, now where is it exactly that I saw a very similar villain scheme?
The moment I am crowned king, I will turn England into the largest prison in the history of the world.
Yeah, the villain's plot is a little bit on the parody side at this point, but you know what, I'm still going with it. It's a big, silly, campy plan, but with the extreme violence and general darkness of the whole story anyway, I don't think that an outrageous villain scheme is too intrusive, really. Anyway, Kjack in traditional Bond villain form locks Bond in a room to be fried and buggers off instead of sticking around to actually watch what'll happen. So it's up to an unsupervised Bond to figure a way out of the room, which is the cliffhanger that we end this issue on. Before moving on to issue 5, I just want to take one moment just to complain about something. On the front cover of issue 4, we have this sort of cyborg character. Looks really cool. Like, it looks really villainous, and like you would expect that Bond would have a pretty cool fight with whatever it is. Not in this issue. Not in this issue at all, and spoiler alert, not in issue 5 either. So, unless this is going to turn up in issue 6, in which case this is a massive spoiler, putting that on the front cover of 2 issues previous. And if it isn't in issue 6, then why the hell is it on here? Like, if you're gonna put something that cool on the front cover, you've got to use it somewhere, surely. I mean, otherwise, what, did the artist just have a hankering to draw General Grievous's cousin on the front of this issue for some reason? The cover for issue 5 is much more regular, and is actually related to a scene in the story so far, but yes, Bond of course escapes from his captivity and enjoys a smoke before contacting MI6 and Tanner, who arranges Bond's travel back to Heathrow, and in a really lovely little reference to Diamonds Are Forever, instructs that Bond's driver carry a sign for Peter Franks. It's such a lovely little touch, and I'm assuming it's a conscious choice, otherwise if it was a random name, then, well, what a remarkable coincidence. After some banter with M and Tanner, Bond receives the next extension of his mission to rendezvous with some MI5 agents who are investigating some docks in East London where they believe the diseased drugs were shipped to. This is after a nice bit of play with Moneypenny, who certainly inverts the overt sexuality Bond often affronted her with back in the day. Bond takes his own car to the docks, which rather cutely is a Bentley instead of an Aston Martin, but it isn't long before said car is bashed up as Dharma Reach reappears and tries to kill Bond as revenge for murdering her lover Masters in the previous issue. It's a cool fight with Reach's robotic hands giving her the upper hand, but of course Bond wins by first stabbing one of Reach's hands and then kicking her into the Thames where her hands explode? Huh. Okay, this is the first, like, properly dud moment of the story for me, just because it's so overblown and silly, and not in a sort of excusable, passable way, I don't think. I think that it's genuinely quite silly. That, I mean, like, the fact that her prosthetic hands, wouldn't be water resistant, like, you would think that that would be pretty high on the list of, you know, things that these hands must be. Water resistant is one of them. Secondly, that they would explode so massively after being exposed to water. I mean, she's not Inspector Gadget, for goodness sake. Does she have sticks of dynamite down her wrists that went off when exposed to water? I don't know, maybe I'm just being pedantic, because it is a, you know, it's a cool visual and whatever, but maybe it's also because I just actually quite like this character and I wanted to see Reach progress further into the story a little bit more. But you know, whatever, it's a cool panel.
So Bond heads back to MI6, where they've tracked Reacher's last known whereabouts to Floro, a place just off the Norwegian coast, where the only local point of interest is a decommissioned Norwegian battleship, the HNOMS VARGR.
Okay, yeah, I'm satisfied that the title derives its name from that particular plot point. It's fine, it's passable.
Bond insists on being sent in under the radar, and we end the issue with a lovely bit of authority defiance from Bond as he insists that M give him his bloody gun back. Issues 4 and 5 of VARGR are action-packed, to say the least, with two major villains meeting their ends and all the pieces being put into place for the next issue, which I guess is going to be the conclusion of the VARGR story.
Maybe it's just because I'm not a comic book guy and this is just how things work in the comic book world, but everything just feels like it's moving incredibly quickly, and, you know, if anything, it's a testament to how much I'm enjoying this story and enjoying these characters, that I do actually just want it to take its time a little bit more.
I didn't realise when I started VARGR that it was only ever going to be a 6-issue thing, but I mean, are most comic story arcs a similar size? I guess I'm so used to feature film narratives that the comic book world feels so, condensed to me, but maybe the next issue will provide a more satisfying conclusion to the story. We'll find out next time as we have a look at issue 6 of VARGR, but until then...
So long for now, Bond fans.